It is time for the DFS strategy show for UFC Austin. I am Jason Floyd. Of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers. You're here to break down UFC Austin, which goes down on Saturday in Austin, Texas, live in front of fans, which also means bigger cage. So something to kind of think about as you're breaking down these fights. Of course, we are sponsored by PrizePicks. Later on in the show, we'll talk about some of the props that PrizePicks has over for UFC Austin. But also, speaking of PrizePicks, they've got props up for tomorrow night's PFL show. So might be able to take advantage of that one as well, because I know I'll be on PrizePicks tomorrow trying to take advantage of some of those PFL props they have over there. But of course, we're here to break down UFC Austin. Pete, how you doing, brother? Hey, Pete, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on? Just rolling with the clouds out here, apparently. I don't know what the heck's going on. But yeah, happy to be here for another fight card. Tons of fights, hopefully no dropouts, exciting matchups, strange situations throughout, a couple confident reads, and some fights where I'm just going to be relying on Fantasy Cruncher tool and making sure that I set a group to get some exposure to certain matchups.
Yeah, this is 14 fights. As we sit here on a Thursday afternoon, we'll see what happens with the weigh-ins. By the way, speaking of weigh-ins, I don't know if you saw this. Jeremy Stevens shaved his head and shaved his beard to be able to make weight for the PFL show here today, which, hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I remember back in the day at a Bellator event, Daniel Strauss was on the verge of not making weight for, it was a title fight. And he just said, cut his braids out, went completely bald, stepped on the scale and made weight. So sometimes you got to do those kind of things. But of course, we got the main event here. Calvin Kattar taking on Josh Emmett, key matchup at 145 pounds. I love this matchup. This one has banger potentially written all over it. Of course, as we do this show, the FanDuel salaries are not out. Calvin Kattar, 8,800, 7,400 for Josh Emmett. You know, one of the things, Pete, as I was thinking about leading up to this fight, before I really started kind of taking a deep dive, you think of Josh Emmett as a guy who trains at Team Alpha Male. We all know the thought process of Team Alpha Male and of takedowns. But ever since he scored those 8 takedowns in his second UFC fight, this is a guy who just he loves to stand up here, which if he's going to stand up for against Calvin Kattar, man, I love Calvin in this spot.
I think it's an extremely interesting fight for sure. You would like to see Emmett use his wrestling more throughout his UFC career. But that's what happens when you start, landing knockouts and fighters start falling into their hands. I'm falling in love with their hands, and they're like, man, I could end the fight really quick, and I don't have to work as hard, and I don't have to get 5 takedowns a fight to solidify rounds. It's a gift, and it's also a curse, right? So some fighters you're going to be able to go out there and put them away, and some fighters are going to match you on the feet and possibly surprise you. And that's where I feel like Calvin Kattar in a striking matchup, he has the upper hand here. Obviously, Emmett has that death touch about him, where he swings so wild and heavy that he could, knock out Calvin Kattar. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Nothing that I'm necessarily expecting in this matchup. I am expecting Calvin Kattar to be the better striker of the two and edge him out ever so slightly for each round, because I do think that Kattar has some well-rounded skills that he hasn't necessarily shown inside the UFC's octagon. So I will be edging with Calvin Kattar. But as far as like a priority play, I don't know. I feel like this could be a calculated affair because they're both going to have to be very, very careful about getting clipped by their opponent.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some of the bombs that Emmett lands, but I do believe a 5-round fight does favor Calvin Kattar. I mean, look, we've seen the damage that Calvin Kattar to take. Just go back to the Max Holloway fight. And one thing that I do like is the fact of Kattar and all of his team. They've been in Austin for well over a week now. This is something that they have been doing now for some time, whether they're fighting in Vegas or they're fighting somewhere else. They go out there a week plus a time. So they've been in Austin, Texas for some time. I will tell you, I think in cash games, Calvin Kattar may be a core play for me just because of the volume. But I think that if you find yourself in a situation this week where maybe you're looking for a low price option to maybe get you 50-ish points, I wouldn't mind going to Josh Emmett. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. There's just so many fights, right? And there's so many opportunities to get points in some of these matchups where I'll get exposure to both sides. I'm favoring Calvin Kattar as I already mentioned, I like him to win via decision, but a violent finish, wouldn't really surprise me. So I will be, yeah, I'll have to see how ownership plays out, but I might be level with the field, or if this one's getting too popular, I might take an underweight approach and just try to maximize some ceiling plays on some other matchups.
Of course, the co-main event is a matchup that was supposed to take place a couple weeks ago, that being Donald Cerrone and Joe Lozano. It now happens here at UFC Austin. 8,300 for Donald Cerrone, 7,900 for Joe Lozano. Before we get into this matchup, of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to us right here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you know when the show is live here on the channel. Of course, coming up later on today, we got you covered for MLB coverage, also for NBA coverage, Game 6 of the NBA Finals, and today's free premium day and tools, MLB player projections, MLB ownership projections. Of course, Eric and Greg were on before us talking about today's MLB slate. So if you missed that show, be sure to check that out right here on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Of course, we've rebranded to Stochastic, so be sure to check us out and everything. All the tools are exactly the same. But Pete, co-main event, we broke it down a couple weeks ago. I don't think a ton has changed in my mind. I would probably say I probably favor Joe Lozano more this time around, because I do kind of wonder about where Donald Cerrone is at this point, cutting down to 55 again. What's he going to look like on the scale there? I mean, look, Joe Lozano, to me, first round upside clearly is there. I do think the longer the fight goes, I do favor Cerrone, but I just kind of, I kind of feel like, I wonder, is the motivation there for Donald Cerrone right now, or is it, hey, he's just trying to cash some checks?
Yeah, it's a tough fight, and I do think that more ownership will be coming in on Joe Lozano, since we saw Cowboy not make it to the prior matchup, and I feel like a lot of the opinions have fluctuated, whereas some people wanted to take some stands on Cowboy Cerrone in the initial matchup. I feel like more people are starting to lean in Lozano's favor, and it's a volatile matchup. So whereas the main event, I'm not expecting tremendous points. The winner of this matchup, I am expecting a lot of points. So this is going to be a GPP priority play for me. I will be probably, I'll be making a group on Awesemo.com or Stochastic as we are now. But I will say that this is just a priority play, and the under 2.5 is something that I'm looking to target, because I can't foresee this going 15 minutes. Just of how both of these fighters are in their career right now. Cowboy, not necessarily, he's a shell of himself. I really hope that he comes out there and he is able to implement his traditional striking, where it's, good kickboxing, because in their primes, I believe that Cowboy would have ran right through Joe Lozano. Mm-hmm. But Cowboy of now is so far from the peak of his career, and Joe Lozano, he can get knocked out as well. But it's just like, I don't know, man. I feel like it's a slight lean towards the value play in Joe Lozano, but truthfully, I'll be rooting for Cowboy Cerrone, and I don't care who I get in my lineups.
Yeah, I mean, and Joshua in the chat brings up the point that Donald Cerrone did come in from Thailand. I guess apparently he is filming a movie out in Thailand, which kind of raised some questions. Who are some of the training partners help getting him ready? And then also want to ask about the price. Said why did Cerrone's price go down since the last time? And I think really a lot of that is probably about kind of how you see the feeling of this fight. And I think it's a fight that you probably have to prioritize in terms of GPPs. And I'm already looking at that top fire tool we have over at Stochastic.com. And I'll tell you that Joe Lozano ownership is, let's just say it's flashing at me. It's flashing at me, Pete.
Yeah, I don't like hearing that he's filming movies. It's too much on his plate. You know what I mean? Like, you're at the final legs of your final leg of your career. This fight is supposed to mean a lot for your legacy, to whether you hang around the company or you go out on top. And you're spread a little too thin. And I wish that he would be completely focused on the task at hand, where I feel like Joe Lozano is. Now, at the end of the day, the cage is going to lock, the fight's going to start, and none of that matters. But as far as preparation, I feel like Joe Lozano could possibly be more prepared for this matchup.
Okay, if I was going to give you a counterpoint to your movie comment. Mm-hmm. Remember there was a guy who was filming a movie in Toronto? He got called up on like 8 days notice. 8 days later, he was a UFC middleweight champion.
Who are you talking about?
Michael Bisping.
Yeah, no, I know, but like But Bisping's a guy that trains all the time, and I don't know. It's such a going down narrative street right now, which is like anything can happen in the octagon. That's kind of like what I'm saying. But like as far as like logic and preparation, you'd have to probably favor Joe Lozon in that manner. So it's a fight I'm going to be prioritizing, and I suggest everybody does the same, because if there's light ownership on either side, smash it.
By the way, I just started listening to Bisping's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Very underrated MMA podcast out there. Him and Anthony Smith. By the way, if you didn't see the quote from Anthony Smith this week, I guess on Ariel's show where he's talking about all the European fighters are talking bad about each other. He goes, they're all going to feel real bad when this Nebraska nerd comes and takes it from all of them. I was like, oh my God, that is awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. I just started listening right a couple weeks ago, and man, that's actually a really good. I don't listen to a ton of MMA podcasts, so if I tell you I like MMA podcasts, I would probably say there's probably about 3 or 4 MMA podcasts I listen to that are not any podcasts that I'm involved in. Let's move next up to a welterweight matchup. You got Kevin Holland taking on Tim Means. 8,900 for Kevin Holland, 7,300 for Tim Means. Of course, this was we saw the move down to 170 with Kevin Holland here. Look, I think it's the appropriate weight class for him. He just wasn't big enough at 185 pounds. And we just saw the people that were just able to hold him down, and he just couldn't do anything here. But it is a big price tag here. Take it on a longtime veteran, Tim Means. But this is the opposite. You have a guy who was at 55, moves up to 70. You got a guy who's at 85 and moves down to 70. So Kevin Holland should be the bigger fighter on Fight Night.
Yeah, yes, he will definitely have a reach advantage over Tim Means. So 6-inch reach advantage, 1 inch in height. I will tell you though that Tim Means, he has more success in the welterweight division, obviously, because Kevin Holland coming down from 85, and I think that he's able to deal with fighters within this division. Kevin Holland's constantly in bad positions. Like, I'm a big Kevin Holland guy. He's constantly in bad positions. He's constantly talking to the broadcast table. He's getting taken down. He's getting his back taken. He has an incredible meme where Oliveira has his back, and he's just chilling, acting like he's just sipping tea, just chilling as he's in one of the most threatening positions to be in an MMA fight. And it's just like he's such an amazing entertainer. But I do think that there's styles out there that give him some problems, and anybody that can land takedowns against him is a threat to upset him. As much as you want to bet on Kevin Holland, as much as you want to bet on that power and, diverse attack that he has and possesses, he's a liability, and he really is a liability to lose minutes in an MMA fight just from fooling around, getting put on his back, getting threatened with submissions. On the feet, obviously, I really like Kevin Holland's promise. I like his combinations. The Daukaus fight, for what we saw of it, I think is pretty similar to what we're going to see from Tim Means. Big guy for the division, going to look to clinch up with him immediately, try to close that distance. He can strike if he needs to, similar to Kyle Daukaus. It's a volatile fight, and I'm not necessarily sure if I agree with the salary. I think that I do lean in Kevin Holland's favor, but 8,900 versus 7,300. You're telling me Tim Means can't win 2 rounds out there by going out there and employing a clinch heavy type of game plan? I know that he got knocked out against Nico Price, but outside of that, he's been pretty durable, and he has good volume. So if you're looking at the stats, and he lands about 5.06 strikes per minute, whereas Kevin Holland 3.84, a little bit more of a power puncher. So it's a lean towards Kevin Holland still, because I believe in the skill set, but I'm going to be smashing Tim Means as a value play.
Yeah, I don't mind the value play, but for me, it's more at where Tim Means is at this point in his career. I mean, I really love Kevin Holland being at 170. I think this guy has a chance to really show that he is the top 15 guy at 170 pounds. But look, I understand where you're coming from there. Move on to another welterweight matchup. Is you got Albert Duraev taking on Joaquin Buckley. 8,600 for Duraev, 7,600 for Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley is a guy that, look, you remember, the knockouts that he had, but this is one of those things where, to me, you have Duraev in this matchup is going to be looking to get a takedown. Buckley's got to try to keep this fight on the feet. But one thing I potentially like about Buckley in this spot is if he can survive that 5 to 8 minute takedown swarm that's going to be coming, this could be a situation where if Buckley survives that, he might have a worn down Duraev in the third round, and then he's able to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I think the dogs are barking this week, Jason, to be honest. And I really feel like there's tons of value plays to get to. I think salary being left on the table is fine this week. And Joaquin Buckley is another underdog that I will be sprinkling in some lineups. Now, the one concern about Joaquin Buckley is obviously in the third round against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, a dynamite striker, landing 3 takedowns against him and controlling him for 3 minutes. That's something where Albert Duraev would be like, okay, licking his chops, saying it. If I land some takedowns, I can control this man. I think Joaquin Buckley has good offensive takedowns, so possibly he can stifle some of them. So I basically agree with everything that you said. I think Duraev's going to come out there, and for the first half of the fight should be the A side. It's that, that half point of the second round. What happens there? Does Duraev continue to control him on the mat, and then it comes down to a third round where Joaquin Buckley needs to go out there and find a finish? And does he? We don't know. I'm still going to be leaning in Duraev's favor, but Joaquin Buckley, again, crazy striker, good power, liable to get knocked out though. And Duraev with that grinding type of style, I'm going to lean in his favor. But like I said, there's some confident stands that I have on this card, and there's plenty of volatile matchups and tons of randomness that can happen. So Joaquin Buckley coming from behind or starching Duraev is something I'm going to be considering and targeting the ownership on Joaquin Buckley.
By the way, I should mention middleweight matchup, not welterweight matchup. I mean, look, when you talk about if you were going to make a group over in Fantasy Cruncher, and if you were going to make a group of takedown fighters, Duraev would be one of those fighters that I would put in that group. I will tell you, we'll get to another fighter later on in the show. I think Jasmine is another fighter that I'd be looking to put it in. Oh, I just saw that, because I'll just tell you this. What else? We'll talk about PrizePicks in a little bit. That prop of Jasmine only 1.5 takedowns.
Yeah, that's free money. That's free money.
I'm telling you, man, we'll get into this in a little bit, man. There are some intriguing props over PrizePicks this week that I think I'm going to be making some PrizePicks plays here this afternoon to get on some of these lines before they change.
Yeah, I might have to take a trip so I can go play some PrizePicks, because I'll tell you what, that's some free money.
Of course, this is the DFS strategy show for UFC Austin. Of course, you want to get access to all the great tools and content we have over at Stokastic.com. You got to sign up for a Stokastic Plus Platinum Plus. Of course, this includes everything we have over on the website: player projections, top fire tool, top driver tool, top pitcher stacks, you name it, you get access to it. So you got to sign up right now. And when you use the promo code MMA Strategy Show and you're a new user, you get 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Again, this is for new users only. I mentioned it. Use that promo code MMA Strategy Show, all caps, one word. That lets the team behind the scenes know you heard about it here on the MMA Strategy Show. So if you've never been a premium user and you want to sign up now, great deal, 50% off your first month. Just use that promo code MMA Strategy Show. And of course, be sure to add Fantasy Cruncher to your account, because that is going to help you out so much as you are developing those lineups. Move on to the next one. You got Demir and Goram 7,800, Demir 8,400. What's your take, Pete?
I think that from a viewing standpoint, it might be my favorite fight on the entire slate. Like, I really think that Demir Ismagulov and Guram Kutateladze are some talented fighters for this division. And international talent, and Guram coming back from, a long layoff, but he looked so talented in defending the takedowns against his initial opponent in Mateusz Gamrot. So and we've seen what Gamrot has done since then. He's just been a menace on the mat, and Guram's able to get back to his feet, stuff some takedowns. Training with Khamzat Chimaev is definitely a plus. And I do think that his striking variety is where I'm going to lean in his favor. I don't like coming back from a long layoff, obviously, but as a fighter that has been on the shelf for some time, and I've had to come back from, injuries and whatnot, I understand that sometimes it's not your fault, and you can be prepared. You could also allow your body to heal. And that doesn't mean that he's been away from the gym. Those are variables we don't necessarily know and can't put our finger on. So I'm going to be leaning towards the underdog in Guram Kutateladze. Oddly enough, I think that Demir's boxing is great. His wrestling threat is where he's in an interesting spot here, because did Kutateladze, kind of just show off in his first fight, and he's not at this level because he looked damn good against Mateusz Gamrot. There is a takedown path for Damir Ismagulov, which is very, very sneaky. But I got to go with Guram, man. I think training with Khamzat Chimaev and just having like K1 type of striking is what's going to be enough for this fight. I just feel like it's going to go the distance, though. That's my only fear with this matchup. I don't necessarily see a finish.
Yeah, this is one of those fights that, and I agree with you, I think it's going to go to a decision, but this could be a fight where you could get some leverage potentially on the field. We'll see how ownership looks as we get close to Saturday afternoon. Of course, by the way, lock on Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Myself and Pete will be here on Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So, Pete, that's just a little heads up to you. Set that alarm. Make sure you're ready to go.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think I can make it. But this week's been crazy. But regardless,
you got another wedding to go to or something?
It's been a wild couple weeks. But regardless, Jason Floyd's going to be here, so that's all that matters.
I will be here.
I'm taking the over on Pete.
I don't have a show on Sunday. No NASCAR this week, so Saturday night might be a good time for me, bro. I'm just saying.
Oh, there you go.
Just saying. By the way, something I do want to mention on the previous side, Joaquin Buckley. One of the concerns I have with him is he is known for a guy that doesn't believe in light sparring. And I'm always kind of fearful of that, did you put so much hard sparring in that there could be an effect on fight night? That's always something for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's always a fear for sure. And that's where like you see them get knocked out and you're like, man, that chin is gone. It's because some of the best rounds are left inside the gym. And that's always a fear. Taking damage is just horrible.
I've heard that story about Adam Piccolotti. He is not a light sparring type of dude.
I tell you what, there not many people are.
Yeah, I've heard there's some fighters at down at Sanford that necessarily don't love going with him, because if they're just trying to get a little work in, they just understand. You go with him, you know you're gonna do something. So next up, we got Gregory Rodrigues taking on Julian Marquez. Julian Marquez, 7,700, 8,500 for Gregory Rodrigues. Obviously another layoff here for Julian Marquez heading in this one. With Marquez, I do wonder with him is this a part of the years of his body, and is it just physically taking a toll on him? Greg Rodrigues, I love the price point here, 8,500.
Yeah, so this is a priority fight for me. The Lozon Cowboy fight, definitely a priority. This fight's a priority as well. And the reason is there's so much upside on both sides. Like Julian Marquez is going up against a guy in Gregory Rodrigues who's susceptible to getting knocked out every time he steps in the cage. He gets wobbled constantly, gets hit with good combinations, and he looks like he's on his way out. And so it's like, yeah, Marquez hits really, really damn hard. But the club and sub type of approach that is typical for Julian Marquez isn't really viable in a situation like this, where you hurt him on the feet, you submit him on the mat. He needs to hurt him on the feet, finish him on the mat with ground and pound, or let him up and finish him on the feet. So like Jung-Young Park had Rodrigues hurt and rocked. Literally, I could go through every single fight. Rodrigues has been rocked and hurt throughout it. Now, with all that being said, he's a talented striker. He has great power in his boxing, just good overall striking, but it's his grappling and jiu-jitsu that's his bread and butter. So he can win minutes. And anytime you're able to win minutes against the guy in Julian Marquez, who was out-grappled handedly against Maki Pitolo, in round one against Pitolo, Marquez was taken down 1 of 3 times and controlled for 4 minutes and 24 seconds. In the second round, Pitolo landed 3 of 4 takedowns, controlled for 3 minutes. In the third round, Marquez, if you remember, was down big and his corner got on him, and he ended up finding a submission against Maki Pitolo off of one of the failed takedown attempts. I don't think that he's going to be able to bail himself out of a situation like that against Gregory Rodrigues in the submission department, but he could definitely do so in the knockout department. So I'm leaning heavily I shouldn't say heavily. I'm leaning in Gregory Rodriguez's corner just because I feel like the grappling's too much and there's levels to grappling, and he can win minutes throughout this and even finish Julian Marquez. But there is some volatility surrounding both fighters. So this is a sprinkle Marquez, just target the fight in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think GPP wise, I do want to get there. Next up, we've got the featured matchup on the prelim card. That'll be Adrian Yanez and Tony Kelley. 9,400 for Adrian Yanez, 6,800 for Tony Kelley. I may surprise you a little bit here. Don't love the price point here on Adrian Yanez.
Yeah, I don't either. We got chat in there giving us the weather for Cuba, throwing me off. I'm like, what the heck?
Okay, so Pete, that's for MMA or sorry, MLB. People use it for like exclamation point weather Toronto, and apparently it works all over the world. And there's the weather in Cuba for you.
Like the Cuban Missile Crisis. People want to know about the weather for Julian Marquez's nickname, apparently. Yeah, I'm with you though, Jason. I really like Adrian Yanez in the matchup. He has to stuff some takedowns and keep it on the feet because Tony Kelley is a good striker, very tough guy. And that was evidenced in his debut against Kai Kamaka, where they stood toe to toe and they hit each other with vicious combinations. Kai Kamaka blended some takedowns together, and Tony Kelley lost that fight. I think Yanez is going to fight with a chip on his shoulder in this one for obviously the statements that Tony Kelley has said in the corner. So I really like that chip on the shoulder of Adrian Yanez, and I think he's going to want to go out there and put a statement on this fight. Now, with all that being said, the salary, will it justify the performance? And I don't necessarily know if the salary is going to allow for him to get such a crazy ceiling score, especially with so many matchups on the fight card. And also just his style. I can see a second or third round knockout. First round wouldn't surprise me, but I mean, we want takedown artists as the high 9,000 options, and that's totally out of the window for Adrian Yanez. A quick 1 minute finish, maybe that's the path to getting like 120 points. I'm going to be targeting Yanez, but I agree, I don't like the salary.
I like Adrian Yanez, the prop bet. Wins via decision plus 175.
Ooh, I think he finishes Tony Kelley, but I don't hate that at all. I think he finishes him late, and he's great at going to the body. Tony Kelley's really, really tough, was hurt numerous times against Kai Kamaka. So you could be right on targeting that decision prop. But again, for salary, maybe want to go heavier on some other 9,000 options. One of my favorite that we will get to on the slate. And I can't wait to mention who it is.
By the way, Tony Kelley's never been finished.
It's the first time for everything, Jason, and especially stepping up against a dangerous striker in Adrian Yanez.
Oh, it's like this first time for everything. You just start becoming a takedown artist?
Well, hey, that's happened in the past. Remember, that's happened in the past.
I know.
If there was a PrizePicks, Pete Rogers 0.5 takedown attempts or 0.5 takedowns landed, Jason would be smashing the under. He would have lost that time that he flew up for one of my fights. So things happen in a fight, Jason.
Straight up lies to me the night before the fight. Straight up lies to me.
Oh, God, it wasn't in the strategy, Jason. It was just there.
But you know what the funny part about that is? I've now used that in so many fighter interviews.
I think you've used it all the time, and we come up to this.
No, because it's like it's this true analogy though. In the fight game, there's things that you perceive heading into the fight, and then all of a sudden you get in there, whether it's one way or the other, and all of a sudden, like how many fighters have told me and said, you know what? Yeah, we go with their game plan, but it's ultimately read and react.
Yes.
I gotta be reacting to what they're doing. And I mean, it's as much as we joke about here, that's the reality of the fight game, that you may go in there. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, K or Emmett, or we're talking about Hawes and Winn. They may go in their game plan. Then all of a sudden 30 seconds in a fight, they realize they've got a bad game plan. They got to switch it up because maybe they're like, this guy can't compete with me strength wise.
Yeah, it's all about read and react, as you just said. And we train all areas of the fight in our training camps leading up to it. So that's why you'll see fighters that are notorious strikers attempting and landing takedowns because if they're a part of a strong camp or at least an intelligent camp, they're practicing all disciplines. So if they read it and they see the opportunity there, they should take advantage of it. Especially that's how you're going to grow in the sport and solidify rounds too. There's no better way to solidify a round than landing a takedown.
Calvin Kattar versus Kutateladze. Perfect example of that.
Yep.
Perfect example of that. Of course, this is the strategy show for UFC Austin. We are sponsored by PrizePicks. Be sure to use that promo code Awesemo as they will match your first deposit of up to $100. Of course, click the link in the video description below or head to prizepicks.com or download the PrizePicks app in the App Store or Google Play. And so there's several props that I've seen over at PrizePicks today. I would say that tonight I'm taking a deep dive in those PFL props because PFL fights tend to end early. But there are two fight time props that stick out to me. One is the fight time on Adrian Yanez at 10 minutes. I like the over on that one. I also like the under 9.5 on Donald Cerrone.
I like the under 9.5 on Donald Cerrone just because one way or another, I foresee this fight getting ended.
Yeah, that's one I like. I mentioned about the Jasmine. We're going to talk about her fight here momentarily. That 1.5 takedown number, right when I saw that, Pete, I was like, man, that is, if you're making a play on there, that's an overplay. You are not going under 1.5.
No, I mean, she could only need one takedown, but given her style and women's MMA getting stretched out, I think that's free money right there. So that's definitely a play I will be targeting. Like I will travel and I'm going to play PrizePicks. And that's definitely something I'm going to be targeting because Jasmine's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And I can't wait to break it down.
I mean, I'm telling you, if you just go over that takedowns tab over at prizepicks.com, Jasmine 1.5, Cody Stamann 2, Court McGee 1.5, Albert Duraev 1.5. If Duraev wins, he's scoring more than 2 takedowns, or he's scoring at least 2 takedowns. Like to me, this is a week where you go over that takedown props and you just hammer it over there. And the one thing, because of the fantasy score over there, if you think someone's going to win the first round and they've got a fantasy score be anywhere around 100, 105, just smash the over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wait to target it after the show and sprinkle some other plays, other sports, and maximize your opportunity over there on PrizePicks.
Yeah, get that 10x with 5 different plays. Maybe you want to throw maybe a little NBA with or MLB, even though, man, MLB has not been treating me good over PrizePicks the past couple of days. Not been treating me very good. Oh, yeah, man.
It's tough, man.
Yeah, it's you got to find the right ones over there. But of course, be sure to check out PrizePicks. Of course, when you sign up over at PrizePicks.com, be sure to use the promo code Awesemo as they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Let's move over to the next matchup. Mention about Jasmine. She is taking on Natalie Silva, 9,100 for Jasmine, 7,100 for Natalia. And this is, I mentioned about if you're going to set up groups over in Fantasy Cruncher, which is something that I do. In terms of if you're going to set up a takedown group, Jasmine would be one of the ones I'd be putting in that group.
Yeah, Jasmine's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And I think she can go out there and implement her top game, her takedown approach, heavy control. I don't necessarily like the skills in the film from what I saw in Natalia Silva. A fighter that welcomes the takedown to play jiu-jitsu off of her back. That's horrible and a recipe for disaster. In MMA, obviously, armbar from guard always viable in women's MMA, but I think that Jasmine Jasudavicius is pretty talented, especially because she's able to elevate her striking and dedicate a lot of training towards her striking because she has such dominant grappling, and she's starting to become a more well-rounded fighter. She might be one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Truthfully, it's just, does she get the finish? I'm not sure. I'm not sold that she gets the finish, but I'm sold that she can get 100 points. And that's what I really like about her salary, this matchup specifically. And she's going to be one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And that PrizePicks number, free money.
Travis mentioned about how we feel about using Jasmine as an MVP on FanDuel. Just generally speaking, I'm looking for people who I believe can finish fights, particularly finish fights in the first round, ideally over there. I just don't know if she would, because of the grappling is so much more of an advantage on DraftKings than as FanDuel. It just becomes a slate. So I probably wouldn't get there as an MVP.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking to say like the DraftKings captain or whatnot, I don't even know if she's a part of it, but she would be much more suited on DraftKings than she is on FanDuel. FanDuel typically favors strikers and finishers, and two things that Jasmine Jasudavicius isn't necessarily known for. Doesn't mean that she can't find a finish, whether it's submissions or ground and pound, but I think a dominant decision is much more likely.
Yeah, DK has not put any of the captain contests up yet, but I would imagine the fact that she's the co-feature of the prelims, I would imagine that would be a part of the captain contest. Let's move on next up to a matchup that I know me and Pete are not exactly eye to eye on. That is Jeremiah Wells and Court McGee. Court McGee 8,200, Jeremiah Wells 8,000. And I mean, look, Court McGee, the fact of durable is I think a word to describe him. Look, Jeremiah Wells, if he wins this fight, Pete, I think it's early. Mm-hmm. What would concern me about Jeremiah Wells is, does he have the 15-minute gas tank that we know Court McGee has?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And it's a fair counterpoint, because you know that I like Jeremiah Wells this week. I think that it's a difficult matchup. It's a step up in competition against a guy who has some of the most fights in the company, in Court McGee. And throughout Court McGee's tenure, he's been very, very tough. He's game, has good cardio, but he's taken a lot of damage throughout his career. So that durability is, I put a little asterisk next to that, truthfully, because he has been knocked down in several fights. And the more fights that you're in, obviously, the more likely that you're going to get hit with some big shots and dropped. So he was knocked down once against Ryan Jansen, once against Dongyi Young, once against Santiago Ponzinibbio, and finished in that one. As of late, knocked down against Sean Brady and Carlos Condit. Now, those are all some talented fighters, and people may not be high on Jeremiah Wells because of a fluke win over Warlley Alves. I don't necessarily think that was a fluke at all. I think that he was just the younger, more aggressive fighter in that one. But it's the matchup against Blood Diamond, where it's like, Blood Diamond is not Court McGee, and that is fair. Blood Diamond is not a UFC fighter by any means. Court McGee is going to test you in the takedown department, as he did against Ramiz Brahimaj, who I actually liked, but Court McGee was the better striker of the two there, the stronger wrestler, landed 5 takedowns. So what happens in the wrestling exchanges here? Does Court McGee have the upper hand? I feel like in wrestling, he does, even though Jeremiah Wells is strong as heck and is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Daniel Gracie. So I think a club and sub wouldn't be completely out of question for Jeremiah Wells, but I am going to say that he's going to want to stay away from the grappling as much as possible, because Court McGee can put you on the cage and tax you. So I'm just banking on Jeremiah Wells, that power being too much, whether it's a decision or he ends up finding the chin and knocks out Court McGee. So yeah, Jeremiah Wells is going to be my player of the week.
I'm going to throw a number out at you. Mm-hmm. That number is 16. 16 of Court McGee's last 17 fights in the UFC. So this goes all the way back to 2011, have gone the distance. The only one to not go the distance was when he was knocked out by Santiago Ponzinibbio. That was back in April of 2016. And of course, since then, it's been nothing but decisions. So it's kind of like death, taxes, and Court McGee going the distance.
Yeah, if you think that Court McGee is going to win, then definitely target that decision prop. I don't love the fight, truthfully. So like for me in this matchup, my play is going to be Jeremiah Wells, because I think the ceiling's a lot higher. Because I think he's gonna be able to stuff some takedowns, keep it on the feet. If a finish occurs, obviously it's in Wells's favor. But obviously that strong wrestling of Court McGee is something to note as well. So I see what you're saying, but I'm still picking Jeremiah Wells in this matchup, and nothing that I'm going to make a group of, because I don't necessarily know if it scores well, but give me the discounted Jeremiah Wells.
EB bringing up the point. Courts do.
Yeah.
He's due for a finish. I mean, this is the thing. Like in terms of a GPP aspect, it's take Wells or move on, in my opinion.
Yes.
And even like, I don't even know if I want to get Court McGee in cash, unless you think Court McGee is just going to smash takedowns.
You're right. And I'll tell you what, he has to be careful because Jeremiah Wells is a good grappler. You don't look at him and think like, from his fighting style that he's a strong grappler. They're not just giving out black belts, especially at Renzo Gracie Philly. So, under Daniel Gracie, it's just he has to be skilled on the mat. And that was evidenced in the matchup against Blood Diamond. Definitely a different type of competition against Court McGee. But if he stands on the feet a little bit too long, as he has done, like, okay, let's talk about this, right? Court McGee is against Carlos Condit. Easiest path to victory. Take Carlos Condit down repeatedly, right? Where were those 5 takedowns that he landed against Ramiz Brahimaj? He didn't land any takedowns against Carlos Condit. And that was a very, very competitive fight where he got knocked down and he landed 84 significant strikes and got knocked down once. And Carlos Condit landed 88 significant strikes. If that game plan happens, I'm picking Jeremiah Wells.
By the way, speaking, just look at the prop bets on Court McGee. Court McGee inside the distance plus 450, wins via TKO KO plus 600, wins via submission plus 1300.
Yeah, the books don't think a finish is happening, and I don't think it's going to happen either.
Now, look, I would rather go look at the Joe Lazone wins in round 1 prop, which is plus 650.
Yeah.
If you're looking to go big game prop hunting, that's prop hunting there. But yeah, I mean, it's just a 5 GPPs I don't love. Move on to the next matchup. You got Ricardo Ramos taking on Danny Sanchez. Sanchez 6,900, Ramos 9,300. My thing with this one is Ricardo Ramos. Can you pay off that price point?
I don't think so. I don't understand this salary at all. Like Ricardo Ramos and Danny Chavez. Not too long ago, people were picking Chavez to destroy Jared Gordon. Do you remember that? Like everybody really liked Danny Chavez in that spot.
Yeah.
I thought that it was a dangerous fight for Jared Gordon, but that the wrestling could win rounds. And, Jared Gordon went out there and just put on a clinic, truthfully, landed takedowns and just out-volumed him. Chavez is typically the aggressive striker in a matchup where he buries leg kicks, has some great dexterity with his legs, strong punch combinations. The Kai Kamaka and Danny Chavez fight was a little interesting because Chavez went to the takedown well, landed 1 of 5, didn't necessarily have the most control time, got a little bit out volumed on the feet. There was a couple accidental fouls throughout that matchup, so that resulted in a draw. I don't get this salary range of Ricardo Ramos because I think that he's a finishing type. So he throws with reckless abandon. He will spinning elbow people when he gets in trouble. He has good submission skills, absolutely. But like in the Lerone Murphy fight, there was some quit in that situation where Lerone Murphy is very, very tough. And if he gets bullied, I feel like Ricardo Ramos can somewhat check out. So I'm going to be targeting Danny Chavez. When I saw the salaries, I was completely shocked. And it's not even that I believe in Chavez to get a decisive victory here. I just think it's a lot closer than what the salaries reflect. Like, there's no way that I think Ricardo Ramos should be that much of a favorite over Danny Chavez. I don't know. Maybe it's just the notoriety of Ramos and he's a more popular fighter, and Chavez looks like he's struggled inside the cage in the UFC's octagon. But go back and look at the TJ Brown fight in his debut. He butchered TJ Brown's lead leg, landed 4 of 4 takedowns in that one. And it was like, wow, I think TJ Brown is a pretty skilled combatant, and Chavez made him look like he didn't belong in there with him at times. So I'm picking Danny Chavez just because of the value, Sam. That's my dart throw of the week. I will be light on Ricardo Ramos' ownership, truthfully. If he goes out there and finds a really quick finish, it's not going to be well for my lineups, but I like the value on Chavez.
By the way, the FanDuel salaries just came out. Ricardo Ramos is the second most expensive fighter on this card. Cody Stamann, $23. Then it's Ramos, $22, and Adrian Yanez, $22. Now, I'd much rather get to Yanez at $22 than Ramos.
Am I on an island, or do you agree that the odds don't make much sense for this fight? Like,
it's much wider than it should be.
Okay. Because
It's one of those fights that you look at it and you see the odds, you're just like, okay, Ramos should be the favorite. I'm in agreement with that one. I just don't think he should be this big of a favorite.
No, I was thinking like 8,400 for Ricardo Ramos, and all of a sudden we see this price tag. I'm like, I'm gonna go Chavez 100%. I'm gonna go Chavez and get to him in some of my lineups because he can outproduce that salary.
Let's move on to the next matchup. We got a female matchup. Gloria DiPaolo taking on Maria Oliveira. Oliveira, she is 7,000 over on DraftKings, 9,200 for DiPaolo.
What is going on with these salaries? Like, and I may sound like a broken record, I favor Gloria DiPaolo pretty heavily in this matchup, but I don't know about that salary because this is going to be a nice Muay Thai kickboxing fight for as long as DiPaolo chooses to keep it on the feet. Oliveira on the feet has good kicks. The boxing advantage definitely goes to DiPaolo, and she can get takedowns. The issue is like she's taken in some of her matchups and her losses. She's the one getting taken down by Jin Yu Frey and controlled on the mat. And even in her Contender Series fight, controlled on the mat. Cheyenne Delismus controlled on the mat and then kicked in the face on her way up. But you'll see that two strikers going up. Who's the more well-rounded of the two? And it's definitely Gloria DiPaolo. So I'm picking Gloria DiPaolo to win this. And I don't necessarily think that it's going to be all that competitive. It's just, does it score well enough? It all depends on how aggressive DiPaolo is with the takedowns or if she finds a finish. I don't necessarily think Maria Oliveira is UFC level, if you want my honest opinion. She was knocked out in the first round against Marina Rodrigues. I mean, Rodrigues is a monster. And then ragdolled against Tabitha Ricci, who is a takedown monster as well. So it's a Gloria DiPaolo play for me, but the salary is like, I'll be light on that.
Yeah, to me, it comes down to, does Paula go that takedown right? If she's able to land a couple of takedowns, then I think it becomes an interesting play over on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, looking at her salary, she's $19 over there. Don't really want to get there. Next up, we've got the biggest favorite on the card. That's Cody Stamann taking on Eddie Wineland. 9,500 for Cody, 6,700 for Eddie Wineland over on FanDuel. $23 for Cody, $8 for Eddie Wineland. We've seen the chin of Eddie Wineland, but look, when I think of Cody Stamann, I don't think of power puncher. I think first part is that it's a guy that he's a big 35er. So see what it looks like on the scale. I will tell you, I did attempt to get Cody on my podcast, but basically I was informed that basically Cody's just not doing much media leading up to this one. Obviously, he's on a losing streak. He's got to win this matchup. This is a thing where, I get why he's as big a favorite just because of where Eddie Wineland is at this point in his career. But to me, to cash off that 9,500, I need knockdowns. I need takedowns. I need a dominating performance for Cody Stamann. I just don't know if I want to get there at this price point, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, so I really like Cody Stamann, but I agree with you that the salary is intriguing. I will be fine with it, and mainly due to the technical deficiencies of Eddie Wineland and where he's at in his career. So Cody Stamann, not necessarily known as a finisher or known as this power puncher, but you match him up against a guy who's very chinny and can get hit with tons of shots because his hands are down, can also get taken down. So I think what that does is it kind of brings Cody Stamann's game and potential up. So it definitely elevates his ceiling. Whereas in a traditional matchup, you would probably fade that salary of Cody Stamann all day long. Now, I think that Wineland is at the end of his career and will probably be retiring soon. Taking a ton of damage though. Been knocked out against John Castaneda, Sean O'Malley, even knocked out against Johnny Eduardo, a guy that I didn't necessarily think is all that talented, but a good striker. So when I saw Cody Stamann in this lull of his career, where the draw against Song Yadong, the win against Brian Kelleher, and on a 3-fight skid against Jimmy Rivera, Merab Dalashvili, and Saeed Nurmagomedov, it's like, man, oh man, he's struggling, but this is a winnable matchup. And I'm going to be backing Cody Stamann heavily here. And I think that he can have a ceiling performance, probably like career best. I really do. So it's a Cody Stamann play for me, and I'm okay with the salary. But I understand your hesitance. I don't mind it.
Yeah, to me, it's like, look, I like Cody to win the fight. It's just that price point turns to GPPs, and if I put Cody in my lineup, what's the rest of my lineup look like? I mean, look, I'm certainly going to have Cody in some lineups, but there is a little bit of concern over there. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. We'll get to your super chat at the end of the show. Of course, now is the best time to check out our best bets package. Click the link below to subscribe as our team of experts use Stochastic's industry-leading projection models to identify the best bets available in NBA, MLB, and more. Each day, we're confident these bets will be worth more than the price of admission. So click the link below and start betting today. And if you want a free preview of our best bets, follow our Ask Stochastic Best Bets Twitter handle and turn on notifications, as we'll be posting one freemium bet every day. So be sure to follow that there on Twitter. Let's move on. We got two more matchups here left. We got Phil Hawes taking on Winn. Phil Hawes 9,000, Winn 7,200. Both these guys have the wrestling background. Winn did wrestle amateurly at a higher level than Phil Hawes did, but Phil Hawes obviously very accredited wrestler on his part. Winn, he's a short, stocky guy for this division. Do want to see what he looks like on the scales here. To me, it's a Phil Hawes or pass on the situation, but I don't know if I want to get there in this matchup.
Really? So I think there is volatility on both sides. And the reason is because you have Winn, who's massively undersized for the division, 7-inch reach disadvantage, 6-inch height disadvantage against Phil Hawes. Not a strong striker at all. Doesn't move his head all that well, gets hit with some big shots. Will have the better gas tank of the two. Phil Hawes, dynamite striker, very strong wrestler, 1.5 rounds of cardio. So I might be prioritizing this fight, truthfully, just because I feel like there's tons of ceiling on either side. Phil Hawes can go out there, possibly stuff some takedowns from Winn and knock him out. That's probably what everybody's foreseeing and forecasting for this fight. But I will tell you that Winn, training with Khabib Nurmagomedov and everybody at AKA, especially for this camp, I think that we could see a tenacious grappler trying to push the work rate of Phil Hawes. And we've seen Phil Hawes get rocked numerous times. So even a guy like Winn winging shots and then making you defend takedowns is going to tax Phil Hawes tremendously. I just think the salaries are wrong. And I could be completely off on this, but I am not in agreement with many of these salaries for the DraftKings slate. So I will be prioritizing this fight, making a group using the Fantasy Cruncher tool, and definitely increasing the Winn exposure, where I'm guessing a lot of people are just be playing Phil Hawes and passing on Winn. It's fine with me. I don't really care who I get to, but as far as like who's the more skilled MMA fighter, Phil Hawes, but he's only the more skilled fighter for 2 rounds. So it's a little volatile matchup that I'll just be prioritizing. Don't really care who I get.
My thing on Winn is, I remember, the Hoyle fight, great performance. That was at catch weight. I want to say it was either 190 or 195, one of the two. He's a guy that walks around over 200 pounds. He just had a wrestling matchup that I want to say he was at 195, 196, somewhere in that range. So he's someone that I want to see on the scale here. Look, and when these two guys stare down or get inside the cage, you're going to notice the difference between these two guys in terms of their frame. Now, the opening matchup other night, we talk is taking on Dolidze 7,500, Daukaus 8,700. This is my question. Does this become a jiu-jitsu match?
I hope not. I'm favoring Kyle Daukaus in the matchup just because I feel like he's the more well-rounded fighter. He has sharp boxing, good volume, good size, good takedowns, and really, really good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Offensively, I don't think it's going to work against Roma Dolidze, who's a talented ADCC grappler, a guy that wings power shots, attempts a ton of takedowns, as evidenced in his previous matchup against Laureano Staropoli, where he landed 5 takedowns. I think the takedowns are going to be a little bit harder in this matchup with the tall, big guy and Kyle Daukaus, and this could look pretty similar to the Dustin Stoltzfus fight, where you just have Daukaus edging out a decision. If it does become a jiu-jitsu fight, they're both playing with fire because they have different skill sets, and the skill set of Roman Dolidze, tons of leg locks, which is always something I'm worried about. But I am picking Kyle Daukaus to just edge him out over 15 minutes.
Yeah, I do like Daukaus in this matchup as well. Let's get into our straight up fight picks here. Main event, I will go Calvin Kattar.
I'm going to go Calvin Kattar.
I will go Joe Lauzon over Donald Cerrone.
DFS, it's Lauzon, but I'm going Cowboy.
I would go Holland over Means.
I'll go Holland.
I really want to go Joaquin Buckley, but I'm going to go Duraev. I think he's gonna bank 2 rounds and then coast his way to a decision win.
Same.
I like Demir, even though I think it's a tough fight. It's a close fight.
It's a close fight. I'm going to go with Guram.
I'll go Rodrigues over Marquez.
Rodrigues.
Yanez over Kelley.
Yanez, big time.
I'll go Jasmine over Silva.
Jasmine.
Give me McGee against Wells.
Give me Wells against McGee.
All right. I'll go Ramos over Sanchez.
Chavez.
I'll go to Paula over Oliveira.
Paula.
Stamann over Wineland.
Stamann.
Hawes over Winn.
I'm going to go Hawes, but for DFS, it's get to win.
Yeah, and Daukaus over Roman.
Daukaus.
Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. Of course, appreciate everyone that's tuned in here to the Strategy Show. Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Of course, we got shows coming later on today, 6 p.m. each time. We got MLB live before lock. Then following that will be NBA Deeper Dive and NBA live before lock. So hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. Samuel with his usual questions here. So top 2 cash. In cash, my number 1 will be Calvin Kattar. In terms of cash for my second play, even though it's another high salary fighter here, Pete, I think it's Jasmine.
Yeah, I'm going to go Jasmine, and I'm going to go Cody Stamann.
Top 2 GPPs.
I'm going to go Jasmine. And the next one is interesting because I want to think that Stamann's going to have a crazy performance. I'm going to say Gregory Rodrigues.
I was just going to say Joe Lauzon.
Okay.
Top 2 underdogs. So looking at fighters who are underneath 8,000 on DraftKings, Joe Lauzon sticks out to me. The second one that I would point out second one's kind of tough for me.
Yeah, so Lauzon definitely sticks out as just a fight in general I want to get to. I like Wells at 8,000. Obviously, he doesn't meet the requirement for salary, but telling you, man, Duran Winn, that fight, just the pace. If he's able to survive the striking of Phil Hawes, the fight gets easier and easier as every minute ticks off the clock. But it's going to be tough sledding for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Favorite inside the distance. I'm just going to look at fights here. Samuel, co-main event to me would be one of those inside the distance. I look at Rodrigues Marquez would be another one that I would really look at it as a favorite inside the distance.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that. Those are the 2 fights I'll be making a group of because I don't suspect them going 15 minutes. And even if they do, I feel like it's going to be an elevated fantasy point total.
In terms of top leverage plays, I think you got to watch that Cody Stamann ownership. Potentially, there could be some leverage there just because of the salary. And the other one could be interesting, Joaquin Buckley.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like everybody knows not everybody knows Joaquin Buckley, but that Danny Chavez might be the leverage play that I'm okay getting to some exposure just because a high-priced favorite I'm not really sold on in a competitive fight, 6,000 salary. He could be going completely overlooked.
In terms of optimal and dart plays, I think the optimal is kind of some of the stuff we just mentioned with the inside the distance fights. Dart plays, Duran Winn, if he goes to takedown route, he's coming off performance. He had 12 takedowns against Arroyo. I mean, if you think he's going to go that route, I think that's not an awful dart throw.
And it's crazy because I love Phil Hawes, but I'm just saying that outside of round one, if you can touch his chin and make him work, the fight gets easier and easier. Tim Means is another interesting dart throw that I will be sprinkling in some ownership as well.
So outside looking in, Samuel's number of 7.5 with 14 fights may look as a bad number. Samuel, I think that's a good number, bro.
Yeah, I think he's close. I might say under.
I was thinking under as well. Cause like as you were talking a second ago, I'm going through all these fights. I'm going, okay, that's decision. I'm like, these decisions are popping up. Like there's a lot of fights this card that I'm like, I can see a lot of these fights. This could be a long fight card.
Yeah, it could be. And some interesting matchups for sure. Hopefully nothing falls off, but that's why I want to be prioritizing fights I don't think are going to go the distance. And the co-main event and the Marquez Rodrigues fight, 2 ones that stick out.
D, appreciate you in the super chat. He goes, is there a 5-round fight on this card? Yes, that'll be the main event. Calvin Kattar and Josh Emmett, that'll be 5 rounds, which I do favor. That does favor Calvin Kattar.
Yep, agreed. And appreciate your support, D and Samuel, everybody out there for tuning in. If you guys hit us with a super chat, we really, really appreciate it. And if you tune into us each and every week, just please hit that like button. It helps us out a lot and lets the company know that you guys enjoy watching us. So yeah, I'm excited for the fights. Not the best DFS slate, and that's where I'll be taking some stands on some fighters with some high upside.
But of course, thanks to our sponsor, PrizePicks. Definitely think there's some favorable numbers over PrizePicks in terms of this card here on Saturday for UFC Austin. Of course, we'll be back on Saturday live before lock. Appreciate everyone tuning into the strategy show. Be sure to smash that thumbs up button, and we will talk to you on Saturday for live before lock. Have a good day, everybody.